Yeah, so some of you may have seen my son here. I brought my son here to hopefully to demonstrate ADHD. But actually, my wife got in the way, so too bad. Yeah. So today I'm going to talk about the work I've done as a research fellow in the Institute of Digital Healthcare. I was trying to create a model to predict the treatment response of children with ADHD. It's part of a project here called Personalized Medicine through Learning in Model Space. And this bigger project was funded by EPSRC, and there were different teams looking at different diseases, and ADHD is one of them. So I'm going to give a brief introduction on attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, its clinical context, and what the problem I face in terms of modeling challenges. Talk about the objectives of the project and the scope of work performed. Then I'll introduce the technique I used called feature attraction. This is to deal with the nature of the data I have to deal with in order to create this model. Then I'll present the model I've devised. It's called personalized medication response model. It's personalized in the sense that the parameters of the model are tailored to the patient. And I'll show you some results comparing traditional approaches. Final summary. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a syndrome characterizing developmental delay in one's ability to sustain attention and regulate the impulsivity or hyperactivity. This condition affects 3 to 7% of school-age children, and this affects their learning. That's why we want to look into how best to treat them. And usually doctors would prescribe stimulant medication, which can be very effective. However, it only works well for some of the children. And so far, over decades of research, there is no proven method to predict who is going to respond to the drug. So the effectiveness of the medication is unpredictable. So what normally doctors or clinicians do is they go through a process, I don't know if you know, called forced titration. This is when a patient comes in, the doctor would prescribe a small amount of drug first, and he or she will increase the dosage until the patient improves or they suffer from side effects. If they encounter side effect, they might try another drug and start increasing the dosage again. As you can imagine, this process can be quite time-consuming for both patient and the doctors. And the side effects obviously affects the quality of life, and we're talking about children, so they affect their learning as well. And mental health treatment by far costs largest proportion of spend of NHS at 11 billion per annum. So the doctors are interested in this question: which medication and in what dose is best for the patient? So the objectives of the project, which was trying to build a model to predict the treatment response. First of all, we have to process some data in the way suitable for machine learning. And then we can develop the model and implement it in this new framework the group has devised to try to improve upon existing traditional results. Because over the past few years, past few decades, there are a lot of attempts at using traditional methods and they fail. And I've presented my model and some performance numbers. So in terms of data, we have collaboration with University of Dundee and NHS Tayside. It's a very large data set. It consists of 90 pages of work of questionnaires. Imagine giving them to patients to fill. But, and we have 176 patients as well. And most of these are data in form of questionnaire responses. So they are quite high dimensional, so a lot of answers. And the nature is categorical, so it's not a continuous scale. So it's either, for example, the answer to the question may be never, sometimes, often, very often, so it's category. And sometimes the answers are missing, so we have to deal with these problems. So that's why I use a technique called feature extraction. The aim is to reduce the data dimension while trying to preserve the information inside those questionnaires. This is necessary for the machine learning algorithms to handle. For example, 10 questions responses, maybe we can represent those kind of questions with 1 to 2 or 3 factors with theoretically little information loss. The idea is to extract some latent traits thought to relate to medication response. There are various methods to perform this feature extraction. For example, a well-known one would be principal component analysis, and the one I use, which is pattern analysis, is similar to PCA but with an error model built in. So this is a questionnaire called SNAP. It's a questionnaire widely used by clinicians and to give to parents and teachers to fill. It's 26 questions designed specifically to measure 3 aspects: oppositionality, inattentiveness, and hyperactivity of the children. Therefore, we expect 3 factors from these 26 questions. Here are the results for the effect analysis. The colors, I don't know if you can see. So, on the y-axis, this is the factor loading, is how high each question correlate to the factor score. And you can see the red is oppositionality. You can see the first 8 questions loads highly on oppositionality. That's because the first 8 questions was designed to measure that. So we can confirm that the questionnaire is doing as intended. And what we can do now is we can take the questionnaire answers and use this factor analysis model to compute 3 continuous scores. So this way we collapse the 26 dimension into 3 dimensions. So after processing the data we have, I can start building a model. Again, the model is to answer the question which medication is in what dose is best for the patient. So this is the model. We have some data in form of patient baseline. Baseline means it's before I give any medication to the patient, and it's in form of the questionnaire ratings we have, and then translated to the factor scores. I also have information on the medication type and those throughout the titration. I want to predict the symptom score for the patient, and to make this model personalized, I have to introduce some patient-specific model parameters. And the idea is we use existing data to forge a link between these data we can measure using machine learning. So once we have this link, then when a new patient comes in, so this is using existing patient we have, and then when a new patient comes in, we can measure this new patient's baseline, and the doctor can ask hypothetical questions on if I give drug type A and what dose, then using this link, I can infer or predict this new patient's parameters and then oops, and then once the model has all these information, we can generate a new prediction for this patient. So I implemented the model through Bayesian linear regression. So this is a regression, simple regression, but in the Bayesian framework. So I have the symptom score on the output. I have the baseline and the medication input as the data, and I have the parameters. And these parameters encode how strongly the baseline and the input changes the symptom score, and this is all linear. And I have an error term, and I assume them to be Gaussian. And why did I use Bayesian framework instead of just normal linear regression? Well, Bayesian allowed me to have, because the model parameters are subject specific. So what happens is because a patient only visits the clinic several times, and the number of appointments can be very few, so this is usually an underdetermined problem in classical linear regression. So you can't estimate the parameters because then you have too few information. The Bayesian framework allows us to incorporate prior knowledge from literature. For example, the effect of age on the effect of medication. So, there's some information from literature, so we can incorporate them as priors in the Bayesian framework. So the prediction task, given a new patient, I can do two things. I can generate a continuous prediction for their symptom weighting. So that's how, for example, how hyperactive they are. And I simply use this formula and use the model I have. But this symptom weighting is a continuous score, so it may be 1.6 or something. An alternative is to translate this back to something they know, for example, the SNAP score. But we don't know how accurate, whether we can do this translation. But this can be done. I have a model that does this. Or we can do something more simple called dichotomized prediction. This is simply to predict whether the child is likely to be in remission. Remission means their behavior is indistinguishable from normal children. And this is performed by just thresholding the continuous score I have, and whether that's below a certain threshold, then I say this patient has recovered. So how do I define the threshold? Some literature define remission as the SNAP score answers being mostly a 0, which is not at all, or 1 a little. And we just simply translate this to a symptom score through the factor analysis model. Right, so here I have some performance for the model I have developed. Here, so I don't know if you're aware of these terms. Sensitivity is the true positive weight, so how successful are you are predicting actual people who are remitting. Specificity is the false positive rate. So it's 1 minus false positive rate, so the higher is better. And accuracy is the amount of true positive and true negative over all the cases. And here I have SVM is the traditional machine learning method. Here by incorporating a personalized model, I was able to improve upon the performance of existing method. And also there's a recent paper which used completely different data. So this is not directly comparable per se. They're using completely different data and methodology. So, however, they are also still using a traditional approach. Because sensitivity and specificity can be traded off, so this is, you can increase sensitivity and decrease specificity for the same algorithm. So normally, machine learning people would compare the performance of different algorithms using the receiver operating characteristic curve, which is shown here. Here, this is the sensitivity, which is the true positive weight, and there on the x-axis is false positive weight. So you can trade off against the true positive and false positive cases, and anywhere along this line, you can generate a model with that performance here. And on the blue here, I have the personalized model, which is doing better than the traditional method. So the closer to the top left here would be the better performance, because at the peak there, this is a perfect predictor. So it would get every single case right. So a good measure is to simply, for comparison, is compute the area under the curve, which is the normal way to do it in machine learning literature. You can see here the personalized model is doing better than the traditional method, which is 84% is quite good. In summary, I'll talk about the clinical context and problem for ADHD. And I've reduced the data dimension from the 90 pages of questionnaire back to only 15 key scores. And I use these scores to build a model to predict the medication response. And I've shown you the performance compared with traditional approaches. And these are the stakeholders I work with on this project. Thank you very much.